Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Peter Segal's The Naked Gun 33 and a Third, The Final Insult. So yes, from 1994, and back again here, this time the final film, kind of sadly for me actually, in the trilogy, but yes, here we are reviewing this film. Different director this time, Peter Segal. Have only seen The Longest Yard, Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, from this director all the way through. I've seen parts of Anger Management. Again, these aren't films that I like. I'll just say that. So going into this, I was kind of a bit nervous in that sense because I'm a big fan of the second and especially the first Naked Gun films, directed by David Zucker. And that's the difference here. Certainly, I think after watching this film, a couple of other things as well. But yes, David Zucker does write. He is credited for writing this film. Pat Proft, etc. Jim Abrahams and Jerry Zucker do not return once again. They're credited for this at times. Wherever you look, it may be different. Credited for this, and of course the second Naked Gun film, but they're not actually involved in the screenplay. Just because they worked on the first one, and of course the original series Police Squad, which I'll get to in probably 2 weeks. I'd say realistically get into that. But yes, once again they don't actually write. They're not involved in the screenplay for this, but yes, this is a film I kind of thought I'd probably enjoy. I can't see me hating the film, but I was kind of expecting this to be the worst of the three, but that's kind of the case. Really, what do you expect? When you've got maybe a great comedy and they make sequels, very likely it's the case that the sequels at least aren't anywhere near as good, or certainly the first is usually the best in that case. It usually happens. It's very likely, very often the case that comedy sequels just aren't as good. They do, maybe go over the top more, not as kind of enjoyable, and maybe, a lot of the times it just seems to me that the comedy sequels never take the dramatic side, maybe a blend of drama and comedy from the original kind of source, and that is the case I think with this trilogy. But yes, this film actually is a good film. It does get some bad rap, but in my opinion, this is an enjoyable film. It's a good comedy. It's definitely this trilogy. It gets worse and worse, but I think this one is definitely, it's definitely compared to the first is definitely slightly disappointing for me, but again at the same time, all things considered, I think the fact that this trilogy is it's all to a standard at least. There's not a bad film for me anyway in the trilogy. This is not a film I can say you'll definitely like if you're a big fan of the first, because it is very exaggerated. It's very it's definitely I think kind of I wouldn't say lazy, not in the writing maybe. It just isn't as kind of I think well thought out, in terms of just the way it's put together, and also it's just everything. It seems to be everything is over the top, everything is exaggerated, and just I think very much on the nose. A lot of the time, especially the kind of as the film goes on, it starts off actually, the first 20-25 minutes, I actually really liked. I think there was a couple of things about this actually that I preferred to the second one, but only a couple of things really, because that film for me is much better, overall than this. But I think the things I preferred, simply Nordberg, his involvement, I actually preferred in this film, and also just the overall, the kind of relationship with Jane and of course Frank. I think in this film it was more enjoyable in many regards, especially at the beginning of the film, and the first 25 minutes really is just very good, very funny, and just again involving. I was thinking, this is definitely a really a kind of maybe a film that gets a lot of bad rap, and I can't quite see why. But as the film went on, once really he Frank, because the story is here, he's in retirement, of course. He comes out of retirement in order to help the rest of the force with this this mission, of course, to stop these individuals sabotaging in the end, of course, the Academy Awards ceremony. And I'm not going to get into any spoilers, of course, but yes, this is a film that basically once Frank is tasked with this initial, kind of infiltration. That's all we'll say there. Definitely goes downhill. The rest of the film, it's definitely not bad, but it's definitely a bit more kind of on the nose. Very very tiresome at times. In some areas, I think just the visual element of the film is a bit too far for me. And certainly the actual way that the film ends as well, in terms of just saying, the Academy Awards, is involved in the film. I got really excited to see what would happen, what they would do with this material. But again, it's kind of disappointing, in some regards. Although it is effective at the same time. It's just, none of this film is kind of. I don't think any of it's, for me anyway, laugh out loud like the second and the first was. And this film, it definitely is just. It does some disappointing things, with the characters, but because they're so well, established in the Naked Gun. Even the second one, really, none of these characters, kind of changed in any way. Really, it's just it's not as funny, it's not as good, in my opinion, as the first. But in this film, I think slightly some of the characters, a bit off, maybe in terms of what they're like, in the previous two, and I think just. Some moments that go really, really over the top, and I think the villains in this, definitely are not as enjoyable, and definitely it's just at times just too much, in my opinion. The way it goes, it's just very, very. It's definitely flat for me. In fact, one of my least favorite scenes is probably, in the middle of the film, and basically, in a house, particular moment there, when. I'm not going to spoil it, but yes, it's kind of in the centre of the film, before the final act, perhaps. It does slightly pick up again, in the final act, but it is kind of a bit flat, a bit underwhelming, if you compare it to what this could have been. Definitely David Zucker writing, and it's definitely got some really good dialogue in the film again. It's definitely Leslie Nielsen is just hilarious once again. It's early on. Unfortunately, the kind of involvement with the villains in the film, it definitely lets the film down, and it just never picks up for me. I think it's at its best when it's kind of dealing with the kind of home life and stuff, and the relationship with Jane and Frank, of course. Priscilla Presley, once again returning. I think throughout she is really good, actually, and I don't think any of the cast, the main cast, let the film down. I just think it's not as well. Clearly it's not as well directed, and I think just the tone, and stuff. The overall way it's, the actual content of this film is just not as compelling, comedy wise, or just in terms of what's going on with the characters. The plot, once again, it's not as good, but it is, it's a funny film. Definitely, I'd say it's a good film purely because, the first act of the film is very good. If it was all kind of the quality of maybe the second and the third of the film, the second, third, and the last third of the film, then I think it would probably be average, in my opinion. But it is, it's a good film. It's got some, really funny moments early on. With Frank, of course, going into the hospital there. It's really funny, and of course, yes, just the overall, the way he's coming out of retirement once again, and the way he goes into the office and stuff, and they're all kind of celebrating, of course. There's many visual gags once again that are really funny early on, and I think just some really clever moments within the script. I think, and it is an innocent film. Once again, it's got kind of this charm to it. Again, less so than the previous two, but that's to be expected, of course. That's what I expected. But yes, it's a film that, it's a good film. It's definitely a very standard sequel. Comedy. It doesn't do anything too big. The scope is kind of it's not exactly as big as the first film, in my opinion, and it just isn't as engaging. In its in the dialogue, in the overall gags in the film. Definitely a bit disappointing when considered when one considers the first film and the second film even. Definitely. It's definitely worse, but it is a good film. I think not much more to say really, other than it's a film that I don't think is bad, but it is definitely the worst of the three. But again, I recommend it. I think it's definitely something that I found funny. I love the first film. I really like the second film, of course. And this film, I like it, but it's definitely the worst. But then again, I think in terms of comedy sequels, maybe it's definitely not one of the worst or anything like that. It's definitely impressive. It's put together decently. There is some funny moments within the prison section, of the film. But again, some of it is too far, and it's just I think kind of lazy in a way as well, and just a bit tiresome. It's kind of a film that feels very flat at times, in some of these sections, but it does pick up a little bit in the final act, I think. But yes, I think this film overall is a good film, a decent, basic really, but a decent, solid sequel, in this trilogy. That's all I can say really. That is the highest praise I can give it. It's not, a film that, annoys me really. It's there. It's kind of an innocent film once again. It's kind of enjoyable overall, and it's solid. I have to give it a 71%. So yes, the lowest score that I've given for this trilogy. But I don't think it's a bad film. It's not an awful sequel by any standards, but it's just it's definitely the worst of the three, just in my opinion, of course. But everyone's different. You may like it more than this, and everyone has their own rankings and stuff of trilogies and franchises. I just personally think they do get worse as they go on. But the first two, I can take as films that I, at least even the second one that I really liked, and got something quite special out of in terms of the feeling. This one, not as much. I wouldn't say that. It's not got the charm and the kind of the delighting feeling that the other two had really. Just in, especially the second film. I don't think it's a great film, but the first half was really to a standard once again. But this film, only really it's the first 20 minutes or so, and then it kind of goes. It never kind of recovers to the heights of the first act really for me. But I think it's definitely a film that you can see the clear differences in the direction, the overall vision of the film, and just the overall the charm of it, and the actual gags, and just the way, the quality of the comedy, in my opinion. Overall, just not as good. But again, it's a good film. I'd recommend it. I think it's a decent film. It's funny. I don't think there's anything kind of really maybe laugh out loud. Just in my opinion, there's a couple of moments in the first 20 minutes. Frank and Jane. And all the cast really. Here, George Kennedy as well. Priscilla, Presley. The main cast here, do give it, kind of their all in that sense. Just, sometimes that isn't enough to kind of elevate the film, film to great status or anything, because the overall way it's made, and even just the actual writing to the film, I don't kind of love like I do with the other two. But yes, a good film, a good sequel, and definitely a film that I'd recommend. If you love the first, you may not like this one, but I don't think it's a film that it's like some franchises where they kind of really go downhill, to the point where it's really bad and kind of sad to see. But because in that sense, I do think it's a solid film. Just one that in comparison, it doesn't compare for me really. It doesn't have the charm or the kind of blend here, the comedy and kind of. Yes, the drama perhaps. Again, the first one even is not a serious film by any standards, but it kind of has the kind of the dramatic elements, the investing elements within the characters and the narrative that this one just doesn't really have. But yes, it's a good film. It just kind of feels like maybe a spin-off actually. That could sum it up. Maybe it feels like a spin-off, whereas the second one felt like an actual thought out, more sequel to the first. But yes, regardless, I think it's a funny film, and I definitely recommend it. I think it's funny. It was kind of enjoyable, of course, and I like the film. I just don't I don't think it's close to the standards of the other two. But yes, I look forward to the Police Squad series. We're getting to that in probably about 2 weeks. I'd say there realistically from now. This upload kind of time. But yes, tell me your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of this film, this trilogy perhaps, and Leslie Nielsen films, etc. It'd be great to see what your thoughts are, and yes, just in cinema, in terms of cinema in general, as always, it'd be great to discuss anything cinema related. And as always, thanks for watching my review.